the audience kind of thinned out. This is our final session for these 12 chapters. Excuse me, 5 chapters. It's chapter 12. The image is a Wikipedia image under Dhruva. He's now the king. He's been pacified, corrected just by words from anger that was killing and killing and killing and killing. But he was, there was Swayambhuva Manu's interaction with him, the messages of controlling anger for a person who can hear. Some people can't hear when they're angry, but he's able to hear. And he requested unbroken, undivided devotion to Vishnu. That was granted by Swayambhuva Manu, who then left with the sages that were accompanying him. So that's where we ended. This is now the title of this chapter. I mean, it's not what Prabhupada gave, but The Journey Home. Here's what the chapter covers. After Swayambhuva Manu departs, Dhruva has stopped, word goes to Kuvera. Kuvera comes and gives benedictions. Very interesting what he says, because these were his followers, the Yakshas, that were being killed. And it's a very cordial exchange. He goes back to his capital city, because he had gone all the way to the Himalayas, and now he's back in his capital city. He ruled for some time. He did, along with ruling, which was instructed by Vishnu, he also then worshipped Vishnu through sacrifice, very similar to what his grandfather did. He then, after 36,000 years of ruling, he turns the kingdom over to his son, one of his sons, and he goes back to Godhead. And in a very interesting way, too, in this self-same body that becomes a spiritual body. We'll hear about that. That's chapter 12 summary. So Kuvera pacifies, having been pacified, Kuvera comes and speaks to Dhruva. So again, this is Canto 4, where Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. My dear Vidura, Dhruva Maharaja's anger subsided, and he completely ceased killing yakshas. When Kuvera, the most blessed master of the treasury of the heavenly planets, learned this news, he appeared before Dhruva. While being worshipped by yakshas, kinnaras, and charanas, he spoke to Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. So he's a worshipable person coming before Dhruva. Oh, sinless son of a Kshatriya. That's significant because what he had done was sinful. I am very glad to know that under the instruction of your grandfather, You have given up your enmity, although it is very difficult to avoid. I am very pleased with you. And the commentary says, giving up any negative feelings can happen simply by a superior's instruction. Of course, you have to have a superior that you're submissive to. Prabhupada explains, the mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of Paramatma, or Supersoul. Now, one could argue, well, supposing someone is a follower of Hitler or Stalin or somebody, a bad person. So the answer is, no. The one who is truly a superior, not someone who's a dog, but someone who is truly superior. The qualified superior. And that's what a real superior is. And that following leads to, it's a precursor to the clarification of consciousness, that then you can receive dictation from Supersoul. So here's his comment about the O Sinless One. It's to reassure Dhruva that his sin has been counteracted by his bhakti. He further says that time is the cause for everyone's destruction. Now, speaking about, very similar to what Swami Bhuvamadhu said, it's being repeated, which means it's important for us to understand that time destroys all things. Although there may be an instrument of time, it's time that destroys all things. Bodily conception is like a dream. And we're going to go over some of these. This is verses 3 through 7. Just overviewing them first. Bodily conception is like a dream. It's a product of ignorance and misconceived intelligence. This is the nature of the argument. Therefore, give it up. And instead of thinking only of the body, attad dhyanat, one can become free from the bondage of birth and death. And all that bondage of birth and death, that's the opposite of the living entity's natural position. Knowledge and bliss, instead it's ignorance and suffering. So key is giving up the bodily conception. And if you give up the bodily conception, you need a spiritual conception. If you don't have a spiritual conception, you become an impersonalist or a voidist. So you need a spiritual conception, because the impersonal and void are not reality. They're not sustainable. It's just, so frustration doesn't work. The spiritual conception works. Here's the Sanskrit for 5 and 6. Highlighted in this number 6 is Bhajasva, but I'm going to read the translation for 5 and 6. It's nice. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one without distinction, at least categorically in terms of living entities. Begin therefore to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Engage yourself fully in the devotional service of the Lord, for only He can deliver us from this entanglement of material existence. Although the Lord is attached to His material potency, He is aloof from her activities. Everything in this material world is happening by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's a very similar message to Manu's message. There's a remote controller. He has this device for controlling, but he's the remote controller. So worship Bhajasva, the Lord. So the verse has these different parts. Who is He? He's the one who's beyond sense perception, adhoksajam. He's the super soul of all living entities, or sarva bhutatma bhavana. Since He's the soul within all beings, one can also think of all beings to be like oneself. That's a transcendental perspective of universal brotherhood, using Prabhupada's phrase. His form is transcendental. He is without birth and death. He's the energetic behind His external energy. He's aloof from His external energy. He delivers others from material existence, and He whose lotus feet are worshipable. So that Lord, worship Him. And then Kuvera requests Dhruva, any benediction you would like? It's yours. Please therefore ask without hesitation whatever benediction you want from me. So guess what he asks for? Devotional service. Unflinching faith in and remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For thus a person can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily. Of course, he could have asked for a devotee association, because that's what happens in devotee association. Offering respects to everyone and seeking their prayers and blessings softens our heart and helps in unbroken remembrance of Krishna. That's Prabhupada's purport. So he wants Krishna Bhakti. Kuvera was very pleased, and happily he gave Dhruva Maharaj the benediction he wanted. Thereafter, Kuvera disappeared from Dhruva's presence, and Dhruva Maharaj went back to his capital city. So I thought I would share with you a couple of interesting images. This is from the museum, where it's depicting Kuvera. It's said when the images depicting Kuvera show, he has a pot belly. I don't know why. And he has a sack that has money in it, that we know why. He's the treasurer. And I found this interesting. This is from the Chinese Buddhist Encyclopedia. They also know about Kuvera. It's a long description, but there is a connection between China and India that goes way, way back. the exchange of ideas, an exchange of culture, an exchange of medicine, an exchange of astronomy, an exchange of demigod worship. Goes way back to, 700 AD, and then on and on and on. Long exchange. Now they're like at odds with each other for different reasons. But culturally they were very close. He's an important person in Chinese Buddhist culture. So there's a series of verses, 10 through 13, that describe his rule as the king when he went back to his kingdom. And just a quick summary. One verse describes what he did, that's the sacrifices, profuse charity, all of that benefit goes to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Next verse describes his vision. He saw the Lord in all, the same phrase. He saw the Lord in all beings and everything in him. Little asterisk says we're going to take a look at that phrase again. He has qualities, the next verse describes, endowed with godly qualities, respectful to brahmanas, kind to the poor, protector of all religious principles. By the citizens, they considered him like their father, and he considered them like his children. Wonderful qualities for a leader. Desiring to decrease his pious results by enjoyment. Not material, but like Ambarish and Yudhisthira, he utilized those opulences in performance of sacrifices and so on, as if he was a worldly person, and destroy his sinful reactions by austerity. So while he's in this prosperity, he's still doing austerity. And a little asterisk with this one also. Start with 11. By power of his mature meditation, this is while he's still in his role as a king, he saw the Lord within his heart and externally in all beings. Imagine what that would be like. Then 13, his desire to destroy reactions, good and bad, was exhibited out of humility. Actually, he didn't have any reactions because he had established himself in prema. So that went on for 36,000 years. Passing many years suitable for enjoyment of artha, dharma, and kama, what's left? Liberation. With undisturbed senses, the great devotee Dhruva, realizing that this universe made by Maya is like a Gandharva city manufactured in a dream, caused by ignorance in oneself, handed over the throne to his son. Now, if he understood his ignorance, why did he hand it over to his son? Service, that's why. Purification through service. Considering that all things were affected by time, because he's heard this from Kuvera and he heard it from Manu and he's realized it fully. It's now time. He goes to Badrik Ashram. And how many here have been to Badrik Ashram? Madhupati, you've been? What time of the year did you go? When?
April, May.
May. I was told that's the best time to go. I'm being encouraged to go. What time did you go? What month? You didn't go. Anybody else here went? Badrikashram? No. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj is encouraging me at least once. Go there. So, to go there, I'd like to go with other devotees. Just trying to figure out. Anyway, Dhruva went there. This is verse, summarizing the verse, 14:15. Since it is made of Maya, the universe is real. It's an interesting way of saying it. However, by ignorance within the self, it appears unreal. Usually this Gandharva thing is thinking it real, but it's not real. Now it's saying it's real, but it's not real. It appears unreal, and thus is compared to a Gandharva city. In any case, it's now you see it, now you don't. Universe. In Badrik Ashram, Dhruva Maharaj's senses became completely purified because he bathed regularly in the crystal clear, purified water. He fixed his sitting position and by yogic practice controlled the breathing process and the air of life. In this way his senses were completely withdrawn. Then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord, and thus meditating upon him entered into complete trance. So he's gone through all the 8 parts of the Ashtanga Yoga system, and he's now in trance. And in trance he's experiencing ecstatic symptoms. Incessant tears flowed from his eyes. His heart melted. Shivering, standing of the hairs all over his body. Thus transformed in a trance of devotional service, Dhruva Maharaj completely forgot his bodily existence, and thus he immediately became liberated from material bondage. Now, in the image up there we see Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu's 2 associates are going to come descending while he's in trance. Mukta means liberated, and linga means the subtle body. Here's that same point of dissolving the subtle body. When a man dies, he quits the gross body, but the subtle body, mind, intelligence, ego, carries him to a new body. When one becomes liberated even from the subtle body, at that time the living entity is competent and fully prepared to be transferred to the transcendental or spiritual world. And commentary, Vishwanath, is that this isn't the Sayuja, it's Dasya, liberation. Quoting Padma Purana, the wise say that liberation means following Vishnu. So he's in trance, and descending from the sky, he saw the foremost airplane illuminating all directions like the rising moon. Ooh. And then he saw 2 persons, the best of the Devatas, dark in complexion, youthful, with 4 arms, and reddish, lotus eyes with fine clothing crowns, necklaces, bracelets, and beautiful earrings, holding clubs. That's associates of Lord Vishnu. Seeing that these uncommon personalities were direct servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj immediately stood up But being puzzled in hastiness, he forgot how to receive them in the proper way. Therefore, what do you do when you forget the proper way? He simply offered obeisances with folded hands and chanted and glorified the holy names of the Lord. That's what you do. Purport says, even though one does not know how to please Lord Vishnu or his associates, simply by sincerely chanting the holy name of the Lord, everything becomes perfect. And this isn't just Kali Yuga, this is Satya Yuga. Noteworthy is in text 22, it doesn't say Vishnu, it says Krishna. Tam Krishna Pada Abhinivishta Cheshtam Chetasam. As Nanda and Sunanda, that's the two associates of Vishnu, approached him, Dhruva's mind was completely absorbed in Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna's lotus feet. In the Vaikuntha world, all living entities are in oneness with the Supreme Godhead because they never defy His order. Here, in the material world, however, they are not samatha, agreeable. That's samatha is this spiritual oneness of purpose, not a oneness of identity. Uh-oh. What happened? There we go. Samatha. So we're going to hear some lessons. This is Vishwanath helping us. One who becomes a surrendered soul and agrees to the order of the Supreme Lord can easily overcome the stringent laws of nature. The example of Dhruva Maharaj is very fitting, simply by becoming agreeable, twice, agreeable to the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by developing love of Godhead, Dhruva got the chance. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for everyone. Actually, this is Prabhupada. This is in text 22, and he says the same thing again. 23. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for anyone. So don't think, oh, that was Dhruva Maharaj, but it's not possible for me. Because it's possible for anyone. It's principle-based. Now, was he an exalted personality? Yes. Are we exalted personalities? No. So we're not eligible. No, we're eligible. Just Krishna's mercy is more powerful than our eligibility or lack of it. It's not eligibility buys you into Krishna's mercy. His merciful nature is given to everyone. There's instructions to be followed, but we can follow instructions. So, Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, covering several verses, "Let there be all good fortune unto you. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities. You thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have been specifically deputed to take you to the spiritual world. Get on board. Let's go." Next verse. To achieve Vishnu Loka is very difficult, but by your austerity, you have conquered. Even the great rishis and demigods cannot achieve this position. Simply to see the supreme abode, the Vishnu planet, the sun and moon and all other planets, stars, luminaries, lunar mansions and solar systems are circumambulating it. Now please come. You're welcome to go there. So now this drawing shows the 14 planetary systems within the universe. 7 upper, 7 lower makes 14. This message of Muni Loka, that's not always used, but it's above heaven, is because heaven is Swarga Loka, is Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, then topmost is Brahma. So 3 plus 3 plus 1 is 7, the upper planetary. So Dhruva Loka's position is above the heavenly region, below the Muni Loka region, or Maharloka. That's where it is. So when the planetary systems are moving, it's those 3 below it that are moving, circumambulating. Remember? We're going to see that dolphin image again, the Shishumar. Shishumar, one more time. We'll see it again, so we'll do it 3 times total. Shishumar is explained to be like the Virat Rup of the 3 upper planetary systems, Bhuvar and Swarga Loka. It's a depiction, and like the Virat Rupa is temporary, so the Shishumar is like that. It's not a real entity, but it's an entity of an object of meditation, and it's this dolphin or Shishumar that is moving in this clockwise, but just like this totality of all the Bhuvar and Swarga Loka planets moving in relation to Dhruva Loka. Anyway, that's where it is in the universe, below Maharloka and above Swarga Loka. We're going to get some numbers too, right from the Bhagavatam. You have attained the planet of Vishnu, difficult to achieve, which the Devatas see but cannot attain. Stay there. The moon, sun, and other planets, the constellations and stars circumambulate that supreme place clockwise. And here's an image of someone riding in a train. Prabhupada uses this to explain when the scientist and philosopher go to the moon but are disappointed in their attempts to stay there and live, the devotee makes an easy journey to other planets and ultimately goes back to Godhead. Devotees have no interest in seeing other planets, but while going back to Godhead, they see all of them as passing phases, just as one who's going to a distant place passes through many small stations. That's the train passenger looking out the window and seeing different stops, but he doesn't get out. Similarly, when Gopa Kumar is going to the spiritual world from Vrindavan, he passes by all those places and sees all those places, and the demigods are showering flowers upon him. That's what happens to Dhruva too. You know, it just waves Haribol and keeps going. And they're honoring, he's going back to Godhead. Wow. So one can see those places, but you don't. The back to Godhead person doesn't stop there. Or say it conversely. Prabhupada said when there's, leave the body, if there's even some desire of curiosity, I wonder what that place is like. You take birth there. You know, like a kid is wondering, you know, what's it like if I had one of those doodads and played those video games? Wouldn't it be, look at all the kids, they're all doing it, maybe I should get one too. Or they just don't think about it, they got 5 of them, or whatever it is. So that curiosity adheres one to the material energy. It's just how it works. And so The one who's going back to Godhead doesn't have curiosity about those things. They don't need to go sightseeing. Let's go check out that place. Now, Gopa Kumar, he goes to check out this place, that place, because he hasn't achieved his destination yet. But Dhruva's going to achieve his destination. Oh, Dhruva, stay in that supreme abode of Vishnu, a place not achieved by your forefathers or any others, which is worshipped by the whole universe. Oh, immortal. Now, he's not yet immortal, but it's just about to happen. The body is going to become immortalized. You are qualified to board this excellent plane sent by the best of famous persons. We have just 10 verses left and we're completed. So this is a paraphrase of all this. Dear King Dhruva, neither your forefathers nor anyone else before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet. The planet is known as Vishnu Loka, where Vishnu personally resides. Is the highest of all. It is worshipable by the inhabitants of all other planets within the universe. Come, please, come with us. Live there eternally. Commentary says, the planet attained by Dhruva Maharaj is an eternal Vaikuntha planet, confirmed by the following statements in Bhagavatam. Well, this is a lot of the 5th canto verses, the structure of the universe section. Situated 8,800,000 miles above Saturn, or 800,000 miles above the earth, are the 7 saintly sages, the Saptarishi planets. That's the Big Dipper. We'll see. Who are always thinking of the well-being of the inhabitants of the universe. They circumambulate the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu, known as Dhruva Loka, the pole star. And then the next chapter, 23, very first verse. Shukadeva Goswami says, my dear king, 1,300,000 yojanas, or 10,400,000 miles above the planets of the 7 sages, that's the Big Dipper, is the place that learned scholars describe as the abode of Lord Vishnu. The son of Maharaj Uttanapada, the great devotee, Maharaj Dhruva, still resides as the life source of all the living entities who live until the end of the creation. Agni, Indra, Prajapati, Kashyapa, and Dharma all assemble there to offer him honor and respectful obeisances. They circumambulate him with their right sides toward him. I have already described the glorious activities of Maharaj Dhruva, 4th canto. These quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam show that the Dhruva Loka planet is an eternal Vaikuntha planet, even though it is apparently situated within the jurisdiction of the material world. The situation of a liberated soul who lives within the material world is similar, as described in Vedanta Sutra. Quote, although situated within a material body which goes through the 6 material transformations, a liberated soul is actually situated on the transcendental platform. He has nothing to do with the changing material world. At the time of annihilation of the material universe, when all material planets perish, the Dhruva Loka planet is not destroyed, but merely becomes no longer visible to the eyes of the conditioned souls. Clear? You can't see it, but it's there. And that you can see it, although it's a spiritual planet, is mercy, just like seeing an avatar. The avatars, they're eternal, but they manifest in this world and then they disappear. So Dhruva Loka is sometimes manifest, sometimes not manifest to worldly vision. Certainly when the universe is withdrawn, it's not manifest to material vision because there's no entities to have vision. In Rupa Goswami's writing, Laghu Bhagavatamrita, he says that form of Vishnu who resides with Dhruva on Dhruva Loka is Ajita. And another reference related to Dhruva Loka is one of Ramanujacharya's principal disciples, whose name was Kuresh. He wrote something that includes the description of Dhruva Loka. It has to do with the descent of the Ganges. It's a prayer appreciating the Ganges. It's connected with Dhruva Loka. Here's the translation from Tamil. During the time of Trivikram Avatar, the Lord grew up, and his feet reached Satyaloka of Brahma Dev. The Ganges flowed in 7 streams from there. He poked his foot through the universe. 7 streams came down. One came down in response to the penance of Bhagirath to Bhumandala. As it's descending to Bhumandala, in between, it crossed the Milky Way. Don't know what the Tamil word for Milky Way is. And reached Dhruva Mandala. The next stop was Chandra Mandala as nectarian flow. And thereafter it reached Surya Mandala. So it means the moon is in the vertical dimension above the sun. And then the sun, it reduced the intensity of the heat of Surya. From Surya Mandala, Ganga flowed on to Meru Mountain. I'm going to see an image of Meru Mountain shortly. And a small stream from there landed on Lord Shiva's matted locks and purified him. Back to the Bhagavatam. So Dhruva is processing the words of the Vaikuntha Vasis. When he heard the sweet speeches of the Lord's chief associates in the Vaikuntha planet, he immediately took his sacred bath, dressed himself with suitable ornaments, performed his daily spiritual duties. Thereafter he offered his respectful obeisances to the great sages present there, Badrikashram, lots of sages, and accepted their blessings. He hasn't gotten on the Vimana yet. So it's not like, hey, let's go. We're waiting for this for 36,000 years. Before getting aboard, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the airplane, circumambulated it, and offered obeisances to the associates of Vishnu. It's kind of dilly-dallying, isn't he? In the meantime, he became as brilliant and illuminating as molten gold. We'll see that verse again. He was thus completely prepared to board the transcendental plane. So there's an image of the celebrated temple in Badrikashram. Since Dhruva Maharaj was living at that time at Badrikashram, there were other great sages there. As a humble Vaishnav, he accepted blessings from all the sages before riding on the plane brought by the chief of the Vaikuntha associates. Bibrad Rupam Hiranmayam. So there's this Bibrad, brilliant and illuminating, and Hiranmayam, that's molten gold. Same translation, just highlighting those two words. Sridhar Swami comments, Hiranmayam means full of effulgence. The BBT translation of Hiranmayam is his body changed to spiritual existence. His body changed. Not gave it up and took another, or manifested a spiritual. His body changed. Or Dhruva Maharaj obtained a new body made of spiritual energy. Now it's a little different than we're going to see shortly, the image of Narada leaving body and taking us, manifesting his Veena playing spiritual body. His body, like we mentioned this, like the Pandavas became a spiritual body. That's this Hiranmayam. Sometimes the material body itself becomes a spiritual body by the inconceivable Shakti of the Lord, as in the case of Dhruva. That's Hiranmayam, he had a glowing body. This is dramatic and significant. By the intervention of the Supreme Lord's inconceivable potency, the devotee leaves behind his material body, that's the usual, and attains a spiritual body like that of the Lord. That's what happened with Narada. When Dhruva Maharaj was attempting to get on the transcendental plane, he saw death personified approaching him. Not caring for death, however, he took advantage of the opportunity to put his feet on the head of death. Not like insulting him, but benedicting him. And thus, he got up on the airplane, which was bigger than a house. Dhruva Maharaj suddenly saw death personified before him, but he was not afraid. Prabhupada explains. Just like a cat. There's a cat with a mouse, and there's a cat with a kitten. Same mouth. One is fearful, the other is not at all fearful. Has anyone seen, when I was little, we had a female cat, she had lots of kittens. Somehow it happened. So it was common, she would move kitten A by the nape of the neck and pick them in her mouth, and the kitten is dangling like this, and then drop the kitten over there. She didn't come on over here. She just picked him up. And then the kitten is not afraid in the mouth of the mother. And the mouse, terrified. You've seen a cat play with a mouse? The mouse is going like this. The cat's got her ears up, ready to pounce. The mouse starts to move, the cat goes like that. Not going anywhere. Puts it right back. Oh, no. Just playing with the mouse until finally this one just. Oh, same jaw, different treatment. So death personified wasn't feared by Dhruva. Instead, he gave his benediction. So, seeing all this, the Gandharvas and demigods showered flowers. That's the showering of flowers in the background. And sounded musical instruments. Fantastic. Dhruva's going back to Godhead. Dhruva was seated in the transcendental airplane, which was just about to start, when he remembered his poor mother, Suniti. He didn't say anything, he just thought, how shall I go alone? to the Vaikuntha planet and leave behind my poor mother. So the Vaikuntha associates, they could read his mind. And thus they showed him that his mother, Suniti, was going forward in another plane. No worries. Look behind you. Suniti's got her own vimana. When Dhruva Maharaj was passing through space, he's going in this vertical direction, and he's seeing all the planets in the vertical direction, up to Dhruvaloka. And on the path he saw the demigods in their airplanes showering flowers upon him like rain. This incident proves that a pure devotee like Dhruva Maharaj can fulfill all his desires. But he didn't have to endeavor anything. By the grace of the Lord, he becomes exactly like the Lord, and thus, whatever he thinks of anything, his wish is immediately fulfilled. By the grace of the Lord. So we're already at text 35, and there's only 37 verses in the chapter. We're just about done. Dhruva Maharaj passed through all the planets and arrived at Dhruvaloka. So there's that image you saw before. It's a little bigger this time. There's that blue dolphin, the Shishumar. There's those lines, that's the Vayu, connecting the planets in the 3 planetary systems with ropes of air. And then those ropes of air are blown by another wind, and thus the planets in the firmament, in the sky, they move on that basis according to the Puranas and according to the Jyotisha Shastras. And so he passed through all those planets, and he came to his planet, Dhruvaloka. Vishwanath says, Dhruvaloka is situated above the sun and Saptarishi, but below Maharloka. See commentary. So we read the commentary. And there's the Saptarishi planets by name. We know as the Big Dipper, but in Vedic cosmology, they know by names. These are sons of Brahma. There's a modern artist trying his best job. He's not from some sampradaya, you can tell, because he's got it a little messed up, but it gets an idea. This is, of course, Bhumandala. Here's the lower 7 planetary systems, and up here is, above Bhumandala, is 6 of the upper ones. And we're going to take a close look at the upper ones. Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka. That's Tapaloka up here. That's where the Kumaras and the meditator celibates stay. And there's Brahmaloka up there. I don't know what that one is. And Mount Meru, and there's the Ganges flowing down the side of Mount Meru. This is an artist depiction. It's not like anything other than an artist depiction. And the sun and the moon and Saturn and stuff. Two more verses left. So how is it that one is to go to Vaikuntha Loka? Here we are in New Jersey. How are we going to go to Vaikuntha Loka? According to these verses, engaging in ultimate welfare to all living entities. Gosh, we're just little people, so how are we supposed to do that? We work within an organization that reaches the whole world. That's how we do. I'll tell a little Prabhupada story that I've heard probably 10 times from Badrinarayan Swami. Prabhupada was visiting in Detroit during that period of time, Bharinarayan Swami was the president of a preaching center in Ann Arbor. And there were many nice devotees that were made from that Ann Arbor center. Brajabihari was one of them, and there's some others. It was like, a lively time. So Prabhupada was visiting in Detroit, and like he would do everywhere, each morning, 6 a.m., he'd get into a car and they'd go for a morning walk and come back at 7 o'clock, greet the deities. So they went to a certain park every morning, and when he was coming back on the ride, Prabhupada leaned back and said, that is Gauranga Mahaprabhu's movement. And every day he said the same thing. So the devotees were wondering, what's he seeing? So one day they asked him, Bharinarayan Swami or somebody anyway asked him, and Prabhupada pointed to a Sherman-Williams sign. Sherman-Williams is a paint company, and their logo is a bucket of paint turned on its side. Paint is coming out of the bucket and covering the earth. That is Mahaprabhu's movement. Cover the earth. You want to become qualified to go back to Godhead? Sherman-Williams. A Krishna-conscious person, Krishna-conscious being, is always engaged in planning how to take all the suffering humanity back home, back to Godhead. Even if one is not successful in reclaiming all the fallen souls back to Godhead, still, because he is Krishna conscious, his path to Vaikuntha Loka is open. Now he doesn't say automatically or guaranteed or any of that kind of thing, but the path is open. Krishna Parayana. This is the phrase used in the Bhagavatam. Vasudeva Parayana, Narayana Parayana. Now here it's Krishna Parayana. And one of the things that we should learn when phrases in the Bhagavatam are repeated they're important. The author, Vyasa, doesn't always use the same phrase, but at certain key points, he uses those phrases. It carries. So when you say something like that in different contexts, it starts to carry some gravity, some weight. Just the phrase. Narayana Parayana. This was the phrase that was used by Lord Shiva to describe King Chitraketu. Narayana Paraksarge Nakutashyana Bibyate Svarga Apavarga Narakeshu. That verse. Apito Yarta Darshanam. Narayana Parayana. There's a quality of person in this world that has no other shelter. It's the Sharanagati message stated in different language, but it's in a potent language within the Bhagavatam. So when one has that qualification, then one isn't distracted by distractions. This is a common question. I would say it's emerging in one of the top 5 of the Swami circuit. It's distractions. It's asked in different ways. It was asked here twice. Here's one that came from a college, University of Georgia. It was a really good program. So the person that was the club organizer, when it came to questions, she let the other students ask first, but her question was, do you have any advice for millennials? That's, college kids. Have any advice for millennials? There's so much technology. We grew up with technology and it's at our fingertips. And how to not get distracted by technology? Have any tips for us? you got to be careful. You can't go stepping on toes and say, trash it and stuff like that. So, use it wisely. If the consciousness is awakened, that everything that you contact has a purpose. The purpose of higher consciousness, because we're speaking about the place of higher consciousness. If this will help you connect with that place of higher consciousness, you say yes. And think about it a few times before you just nod your head and say yes. Think carefully, and then if it does, carefully, cautiously, and so you use technology. And if it doesn't align you to that place of higher consciousness, you keep the pause button on, or maybe the delete button. But this is Krishna Parayana message. So here's the last verse that we're going to be discussing anyway. Persons who are peaceful, equipoised, cleansed and purified, and who know the art of pleasing all other living entities. Good luck. Keep friendship only with devotees of the Lord. They alone can easily achieve the perfection of going back home, back to Godhead. So I'm going to read 2 more verses, 38, 39, from this chapter. So, summation texts are important. The author, Vyas, wants us to summarize everything that he said over these wonderful chapters, 5 chapters. So 36 reads, the self-effulgent Vaikuntha planets, by whose illumination alone all the illuminating planets within this material world give off reflected light, cannot be reached by those who are not merciful to other living entities. Only persons who constantly engage in welfare activities for other living entities can reach the Vaikuntha planets. Persons who are peaceful, equipoised, cleansed and purified, who know the art of pleasing all other living entities. We read this. So while, for example, one of the ISKCON things that's become quite popular is, so many hour kirtan in the temple. A 6-hour kirtan, or 12-hour kirtan, or 18-hour kirtan, or 24-hour kirtan, or in Dallas it's kirtan 50. And that's wonderful. Now what about all the living entities in Dallas? Or all the living entities in New Jersey, or all the living entities anywhere? There's nothing wrong with devotees coming together. But it's not the full, we are not receiving the full benefit by doing that. Nothing wrong with it. We're not receiving the full benefit by doing that. I don't need to say more. Both are good. So here in the final section, Narada, this is a flashback because this is Maitreya speaking to Vidura, then all of a sudden Narada is speaking to the Prachetas, because this is a story within a story within a story, and it goes back to Narada speaking to the Prachetas, speaking about the merits of hearing this pastime of Dhruva. Would you like to hear the merits? of hearing the pastime of Dhruva. After observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, the great sage Maitreya, Narada, playing his veena, went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. Narada said, simply by the influence of his spiritual advancement and powerful austerity, Dhruva Maharaj, the son of Suniti, who was devoted to her husband, even though he neglected her, acquired an exalted position, not possible to attain even for so-called Vedantists or strict followers of the Vedic principles, not to speak of ordinary human beings. Just see how Dhruva Maharaj, aggrieved at the harsh words of his stepmother, went to the forest at the age of only 5 years, and under my direction underwent austerity. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unconquerable, Dhruva Maharaj defeated him with the specific qualifications possessed by the Lord's devotees. Dhruva Maharaj attained an exalted position at the age of only 5 or 6 years after undergoing austerity for 6 months. Alas, great Kshatriya cannot achieve such a position even after undergoing austerity for many, many years. This is some images that summarize. He took up instructions, he took up austerities, he took up the instructions of Manu and Kuvera. Even he was in the midst of grieving the loss of his brother, and right in the midst of battle, he just stopped, because that was his qualification. So this is our concluding. So we're going to make some choices. Somebody says something harsh, and we can be a victim, or battle, be a victor, or just complain. Those are some options. Or you can decide to go to Krishna, and the adversity can become opportunity. That's what Dhruva did. The last verses, 44 through 52, it's 11:30. There's time. The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great stately persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for all kinds of material things. Wealth, reputation, increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to the heavenly planets or attain Dhruvaloka, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj, just by hearing about him. The demigods also become pleased because the narration is so glorious and it is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Anyone who hears the narration of Dhruva Maharaj and who repeatedly tries with faith and devotion to understand his pure character attains the pure devotional platform and executes pure devotional service. By such activities, one can diminish the threefold miserable conditions of material life. Anyone who hears this narration of Dhruva Maharaj acquires exalted qualities like him. For anyone who desires greatness, prowess, influence, here is the process by which to acquire them. And for thoughtful men who want adoration, here's the proper means also. The great sage Maitreya recommended one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj, both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care in a society of brahmanas or other twice-born persons. One more. Persons who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord should recite this narration of Dhruva Maharaj without taking remuneration. Specifically, recitation is recommended on the full moon or dark moon day, on the day of after Ekadasi, and so on. This Karmakanda stuff. The narration of Dhruva Maharaj's sublime knowledge for attainment of immortality. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who, out of transcendental kindness, take on the responsibility of becoming protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interests and blessings of the demigods. So he concludes the narration. And the conclusion is perfection of life. That's a nice way of saying what the conclusion is. And with gratitude, we have received this wonderful gift, Srimad Bhagavatam, by the grace of our founder Acharya and the predecessor Acharyas, and Srila Vyasadeva and its speaker Shukadeva Goswami, and here we are, little people, struggling with our mind and trying to understand what's what, how to live our lives properly. Bhagavatam has got all these answers. So even this akama, sarvakama, the message is there for those persons. Let's turn on the light. Everyone's still awake. That's good.
Taking devotee association is strongly encouraged and is necessary for advancement in devotional life. I often struggle in this area because I have my own nature and devotees have their own nature. So, how to take devotee association, although knowing that we all have our natures and we are going through different stuff.
Thoughtfully. Some people are more social, some people are more private, for example. So private people don't have to be social people, and social people don't have to be private people. You have to be who you are, and proceed thoughtfully, according to your nature. The principle doesn't change. What it might look like will vary according to one's nature. But the principle is still there. You're doing all right.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for your wonderful lecture. I have a question about that slide where it said Maya is real, but it is also unreal. I couldn't understand that because
Yeah,
I heard it the opposite way.
yes, exactly. I made a little side comment. I just put on the screen what the acharyas said, and it's different than what I'm used to hearing. The metaphor was being applied in a way that's different than I'm used to seeing. The Pushpa Akash, or the Gandharva Pura.
What's that?
Gandharva Pura, the Gandharva, a city in the sky, or Pushpa, a flower in the sky, a Gandharva city. So it just means like a mystical apparition. It's not real. So this was saying it in reverse.
But it is real.
Well, it's real in the sense that it's God's energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's real in the sense because the energy of Krishna is real. What it looks like may not be real, but the energy is real. So the Mayavad, it's a refutation of Mayavad doctrine. The other one is a refutation of material doctrine.
That makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the class. Wonderful class. My question is like, I have like three questions. One is like, in Friday's lecture, when Krishna, Lord Vishnu appears and then he promises that he is going to get Dhruva Loka, and then he narrates all like in future what happens and everything. He promises one thing, that your senses will be steady as it is now. And then we see later he gets little bewildered, as you said, as you gave an example of tsunami and things. And then today, when in our today's lecture, we hear like Kala destroys everything. So is it anything related all this together, or I want a little bit more clarity?
I think I understand your question. It's Satya Yuga. So 36,000 years in our time would be 36 years. He's not yet an old man. From 6-year-old boy to 36. He's not an old man, wrinkly and hobbling, and but still 36 years of being in charge of something, you can get fatigued, but so you won't feel fatigued. You'll feel energized and youthful. Time deteriorates, but you will not feel that deterioration of the influence of time. That's a benediction that he receives. And the rest is just, the phases of time do move things along. And at the right time, you will attain an eternal position. Because he had these two desires. That is, I want a kingdom, and he genuinely wants to become a good devotee. And he didn't really understand about liberation. He didn't ask for that. That wasn't his. He just wanted to be connected to Vishnu. So now he still wants to be connected to Vishnu, even when he's the king, and ask those benedictions from Manu and Kuvera. So the feature of time moves things along, and in the course of time moving things along, he wants the eternal, not just the temporary, because at least at that final stage. Okay? Does that answer your question?
I was more thinking about like how he got distracted, like
How he got what?
He killed so many yakshas and then
He gave so many what?
yakshas and he got into
How he killed so many yakshas?
Ages?
Yaksha. In the revenge.
Oh, yakshas.
Yeah, he killed yakshas.
He killed the yakshas. So what does that have to?
In anger.
Well, okay, yes, that was in your question, the tsunami effect. So why? You want to know why? We answered that twice, and I can do it again.
Like Krishna's promise was that he will not, his senses will be strong. Steady, yeah, senses will be steady. So, how come his senses, because it was Krishna's promise in the beginning.
Okay. So you see a contradiction.
Yeah, so.
Well, what's the
later
contradiction?
Later his senses, he got distracted with his senses, he became angry. So, is it his.
I don't see the conflict. I'm missing the spirit of your question. That the fact that Krishna gave a promise, then here comes the tsunami, and during the tsunami he's covered, and then the tsunami recedes, and now he's uncovered. That's not violating of a promise.
But somebody reminded him before he.
Well, he got overwhelmed by the circumstance. That's what tsunamis do. It covers the land. Normally, the ocean doesn't cover the land up to a certain point, and then it recedes, and then it comes in, and it goes recedes. That's the normal. And then a tsunami is abnormal. It's just, it's the same question that Atulya asked the other day, and we repeated it again, and now we're repeating it again. It's not that Krishna violated his promise, or didn't maintain his promise. Even when in that covered state, his bhakti wasn't gone. It's just covered by the circumstance, by this extraordinary tsunami. The grief of losing his brother, and the yakshas having their mystic power, and the whole scene. He was tsunami covered. He was normally not covered, and was by circumstance covered. So how you should see that is how Krishna sees it. Krishna didn't violate his promise, nor did Dhruva violate his being an Ananya-bhak, an undivided devotee. It was just the circumstance had covered that, but inside he hadn't changed. As soon as the tsunami receded, boom, back to Dhruva, pure devotee. Praying, please let me always remain fixed in devotion to Vishnu. Immediately. Well, still on the battlefield, before he put his weapons down.
Thank you. And when I was thinking, like, why we see so much details, Dhruva Maharaj going to the Dhruva Loka. In other cases, we don't see much details. So I just, it's a curious.
Why he saw the other planets as he was going to Dhruvaloka? That's your question?
So why we have so much detail about Dhruva Maharaj going to, when he leaves his body, he goes to Dhruvaloka, so Vishnu, Dutas come and take them in a plane, and then there is a very detailed explanation. So
Why not? I think it's wonderful.
Why don't we see in other devotee cases like now?
Because it's not. He doesn't need to. According to Madhvacharya, the Bhagavatam in the heavenly planets is something like 300 million verses. But the Earth planet is 18,000, or whatever the number is, a real big number. So, the volume would increase if you said everything about everything. It's just it's in one sense, it's synopsis. And fortunately for us, different persons ask questions. Because just like this whole Maitreya section, he just asked a question. We got 5 chapters. Supposing he hadn't asked a question, we would know nothing about it. But he asked a question. What about all the other questions that weren't asked? You have to go to the heavenly planets to read that.
Maharaj, one more thing, like about paint thing you were mentioning, so I didn't understand about that part, like
Which?
Sherlin Williams.
Paint, bucket paint covering the bucket of paint covering
Oh,
Prabhu's paint.
Sherman Williams.
So what was it?
It's their logo. It's a paint company.
So what we have to get from that? So why did
Prabhupada saw the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like that. Cover the world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, cover the world. And so the connection is, you want to go back to Godhead? Then engage in welfare activities for all living entities. Cover the world. Sherman Williams. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. That's the connection.
Maharaj, this is in regards to fight, flight, focus. So scriptures say when the devotee is being criticized, we should leave the place. So isn't that a flight response?
No. Flight means out of fear. And leaving the place is not out of fear. It's wisdom. Okay. I see several hands on the men's side.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was thinking about again the tsunami effect. Would that tsunami effect be considered more like covering of Yogamaya? Because it's the internal associate of the Lord?
Well, one can make that argument, and one can make the other argument. I heard on 2 occasions, 2 different lectures, Prabhupada said, Arjuna was covered by Mahamaya, Krishna spoke, and then he got freed from Mahamaya and situated in Yogamaya. And one could say what you're saying, because he's a pure devotee, it's all by the internal potency of Krishna that he was covered, so it's a Yogamaya covering. So one can make an argument both ways.
Because in this particular situation we see that Lord Vishnu foretold the future, that your brother will be killed
Yes.
in the forest. So for him to then feel anger, it's kind of,
It's inappropriate. It's
well,
like,
it's something he's already foretold.
yeah, and so therefore, knowing it's already Vishnu's plan, why get all bent out of shape? Because it's Vishnu's plan. Not Vishnu's plan, but sanction. So, just say yes instead of anger. So that's, why not, say yes, that's Yogamaya. Say no is Mahamaya. So one can make an argument, he was covered by illusion, Mahamaya. Or by the Lord's plan. He not only, Uttam was killed, but he responded the way that he responded by the Lord's plan. So you can argue either way. And be both right. And some people aren't going to like that you're going to argue both ways. You got to pick one. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned that when Lord Vishnu, personality of Godhead, appears and then he blessed Dhruva Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj became pure. So is that similar like when Bhakta or Pujari or Brahmana worship the Lord and when they touch lotus feet of the Lord, those devotees and Bhakta becomes pure?
Well, you don't have to touch the feet of the Lord to become pure. You just follow the instruction to become pure. Follow the instruction to become pure. Within the instruction is the power of purity. Follow the instruction to become pure. What do you think? Supposing Pujari A touches the feet, Pujari B doesn't touch the feet. Is Pujari A not going to become pure because he didn't touch the feet? He's following instruction. The means of purification, of purity, is there within the instruction. That's my faith. If the Lord wants to extend his feet and touch Pujari A on the head, that's fine. What do you think? You okay? You don't look okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm looking forward for the Japari Maharaj. 64 rounds.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Devaki, you had your hand up or no? Devaki. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dhruva's story is so amazing. I also never read from this perspective, and he went so deep and made us actually go into the deeper recesses of our hearts. So really indebted to you. One thing struck me that Dhruva had these gurus, Mother Smriti, Narada Muni ji, Swayambhu Manu ji and Kuvera. In most of these cases, Dhruva did not pray for these spiritual masters. They came to help him by the divine will. So I was wondering, it has something to do with that he's from a great family tradition. He's very close to Lord Kapila Dev and Dhruva Maharaj and Swayambhu Manu and Ramaji, that all these spiritual masters, they're so kind to him that they find in their own hearts from the super soul side that this devotee Dhruva needs help at this particular point. Let's go and instruct him. He's supremely fortunate in that sense, and how we, you mentioned we're part of this international society for Krishna consciousness. Is that also possible for us, that we're part of Prabhupada's family and we become that fortunate, that devotees with that kindness who are very senior, they find we are in some trouble, we need help, and they come even if we don't approach them. Something like that I'm trying to reflect in my own heart. Please shed a little bit more light.
Well, keeping it simple, I appreciate your appreciation or your reflection. Two things. Something that I can't help it. Having spent 20 days, 12 to 15 hours a day with Ramayana, it's like in my blood, it's in my system now. So the acharyas commenting on Ramayana say it over and over and over and over. The nature of Ram is he's merciful. And he has different persons perform the function of acharya. And he empowers them, and they, on his behalf, they go here and go there and demonstrate the character of Ram, which is what Ram does. He goes into the Dandak forest and finds the sages. They don't have to go find him. That's his nature. That's Bhagavan's nature. And sometimes he sends others to go do on his behalf. And they're just doing on his behalf. They don't, so that's the nature of Bhagavan, and that's the nature of those who are representing Bhagavan. Now sometimes in our ISKCON society, my experience is Krishna uses us in that way, and we don't even know we're being used in that way. That's my experience. So it's just Krishna's mercy coming in different shapes, forms, manners of expression. Now, is it required from our side for eagerness for such association? Yes. Then is it incumbent upon us to go searching? Yes. But there's abundant opportunity if our light's on. If we understand the importance of, and we're hearing, just like he wants the association of such devotees. That's Dhruva's one of his 12 prayers. For constant remembrance and constantly so. Does he go out of his way to find it? He's asking Vishnu, this much we know, he's asking Vishnu for the opportunity. So most likely, if that's such a strong desire, he's looking for it. But at the same time, if the Lord knows that we're looking for it, he'll send it. That's his nature. That's his Bhaktavatsala nature. And it can come in many different ways. As Prabhupada writes, the nectar of instruction, ISKCON was formed for that purpose. Provide opportunity for loving exchange. So, here we are. You okay? You want to add more to this? You want to add your own thoughts to it? Or you're good? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for saying what to do. Thank you for all previous days and sessions. It was, thank you for teaching us how to deeply study the Shastras and absorb ourselves and learn. Also personally, I think last few days were intense but very useful and enriching. So thank you very much. Maharaj, I have
if it was intense for you, imagine what it was like for me.
Yes. Totally agree.
And then I'm going on to the next place.
Thank you very much for that. And, my question is more about Dhruva Loka. Few questions. Sorry. So, each Brahmanda Maharaj has a Dhruva Loka?
Oh, somebody asked that the other day. We don't know. We don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Whether Dhruva is the person residing in that place, most likely no. It's Dhruva is the one's jiva. Is there a similar planet that other planets are moving? Likely. We don't know. But Dhruva is in this universe. That much we know. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then I have a couple of more questions about Dhruva Loka, if it is okay.
Sure.
So today, Maharaj, you explained the Dhruva Loka is below the Muni Lokas, the three Lokas. So
Yeah.
When all other planets are circumlating Dhruva Loka, so the Muni Loka are not doing that?
No.
Okay, so only the below planets?
Yes. Bhuvar Swarga, the planets below are moving in that way.
And Maharaj, is it possible to explain the Shishumara concept again? Because
Sure. So the authority that I'm referring to, when I'm giving you the explanation, is Antardweep, the person who is in charge of the TOVP planetarium. So I wrote to him because he's very knowledgeable. It's his service, and he's up to here. And so I asked him, what is this reference, Shishumar? And he gave me a very, he's very kind to me. I don't know if he'll answer everybody's questions, but he's very kind to me. He gave a very detailed answer. It took a while because he was busy. But he explained, it's something like the Virat Rupa, which is the structure of the universe, but it's not an eternal, it's an imaginary, thus not eternal, or not eternal, thus imaginary entity, the universal form. And so similarly, Shishumar is for the purpose of meditation, envisioning in one's mind the planets Bhuvar and Swarga Lokas. And it's described in the scriptures what it's made up of. Prabhupada has taken that Shishumar, Sanskrit word, and translated it as dolphin. He then said when Dhanavir Maharaj was doing his parallel research, the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas particularly translate Shishumar as scorpion. And then Antardweep said, as far as I'm concerned, the description of what the parts of the body of this Shishumar are this, this, and this, and this, which are not present in a dolphin or a scorpion. But the depiction is identical with the carrier of Kuvera. And he sent me an image of Kuvera and the carrier of Kuvera. And it's, it's a different looking entity. It's not, I don't even know what it is.
Kuvera is mongoose.
Kuvera?
Kuvera's Vahan is mongoose.
Kuvera what? Mongoose.
Mongoose.
Okay, well, I don't know what a mongoose is. But I can show you the picture. Would you like to see the picture he sent me?
Yes.
Sure. So that's what he said, that's just his conviction or feeling or intuition or whatever, that which makes up this Shishumar doesn't match a dolphin or a scorpion. Although, Sri Vaishnavas for generations, that's what they call it in English. But, it's Shishumar. So that's what it is. It's for meditation purposes, just like Gayatri Mantra. There's the Bhuvar Swarga Loka. It's the process of creation, just identifying those places, those 3 out of the 14. And it's a graphic depiction of that mantra, of that portion of the Gayatri Mantra. Those planets that circumambulate Dhruva. That's what Shishumar is. That's what he told me. It was good enough for me. I'm fine with that explanation. Mongoose. I don't know what a mongoose is.
So in one of the slides, the photo is there. The slide is
Okay. Well, when we're done, I can just pull it up on my computer and show you, I'll show you what the thing looks like.
Thank you.
Okay. Premarava, way in the back. Oh, you have something. But you've been very patient. You're always from this morning, you've been patient.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to offer similar appreciation as Devachandan Prabhu and Purnachandra Prabhu just did. I was just appreciating the amount of attention to detail that you brought in the overall presentation, and almost giving us a template for how to actually carefully and scrutinizingly study Srimad Bhagavatam, and not just be happy at the distance, just appreciating the stories and maybe just superficially. So that's what I was appreciating. In the morning I was raising my hand because I appreciated this question on whether the subtle body gets dissolved also in impersonal liberation. Then I was thinking that that also is kind of tied with the fall down of jiva aspect, because when we are in the spiritual world, I have a thought on that. So when the jivas fall down, we use the term yadrichya or somehow or other, and we just say that the living entity is misusing his free will. And clearly in the spiritual world there is no subtle body.
I'm listening, I'm just getting this Shishumar image.
So there is no subtle body in the spiritual world, in our original spiritual form. So our fall down has to do with more our being a Tatastha Shakti, or the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, that we are fallible by nature. But we are still protected by Krishna's promise that once we go back to the spiritual world, we are not going to fall down. But in the case of the impersonal liberation of those who are attaining that neutral state because of avishuddha buddhi, because their intelligence has not been purified, so they don't receive such a protection, because of which they fall down. Is that understanding?
Well, what does that have to do with subtle body in the Brahmajyoti?
So in both the cases there is no subtle body, but the assurance of the Supreme Lord is not there. That's what I was thinking. That because in the spiritual world we do not have subtle bodies, and yet we fall down.
That's a stretch, because the aside from assurance, when there is not, I want to be engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead at a conscious level, that's absent. Not only protection promise, that's absent in the Brahmajyoti. That's why it's considered hellish by Prabodhananda Saraswati. No service? Put me in a straitjacket with blinders and a gag in my mouth and call that happiness? No service? No thank you, that's hellish. Besides the promise. So what is it? It's not just minus a promise.
But the absence of service propensity...
Why is that? It's unnatural. It's neutral, but it's unnatural. It's anesthetized consciousness. And when the anesthesia wears off, you come back to. So I'm not sure that you got it with that explanation. Nor am I clear. This question is a nice question. I plan to ask scholarly devotees, not what's your opinion, but have you read anything about that? Is there anything from our Guru Sadhu Shastra that tells us about that question? But I'm not satisfied with the answer, even notionally, because Kaivalya Narakayate. Not just I didn't get a promise. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Sorry. Premarnava, way in the back.
We're talking about anger. I was doing some therapy and Shaiga recommended me to check out the anger workshop that they were doing. So I said sure. And they teach you some good things in there, like what triggers you. And some people say that they become quiet, some people become restless, pacing back and forth. And they also, as soon as you come, they ask you, what is anger? And the same answer is a feeling. So it's normal for humans, for conditioned souls to have it. And it becomes bad when you cross that line and try to use it or hurt somebody. And it becomes wrong. So they try to make people understand that. And so I wanted to, there's like a PhD seats there, like a AA meeting. So the candidates can come, the new guy comes and introduces himself, and it was very useful. Actually, you have to do that. Like if you become too angry and you hurt somebody, then they call the police, and then you have to, the judge, in order to not go to jail, you have to show the certificate. So it's mandatory, which is great. So it just those classes came to mind. And also you, if I remember correctly, you told the story about Prabhupada, how...
Yes. He used transcendental anger, but he wasn't controlled by it. As soon as the situation was over, the anger went away, because he was using it in Krishna's service.
Yeah,
he wasn't controlled by it.
One devotee, I'm sorry. You have one devotee, and then somebody else came and Prabhupada just wrote that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to appreciate that. But they don't have that concept that we have, that the thinking, feeling, and willing is missing there. So it's kind of like, I guess if you're religious, you can also pray those people who are there, but they don't have that deep analytical breakdown.
Well, the knowledge helps, but it's insufficient. Knowledge is very helpful, but it's insufficient. What's sufficient is bhakti, because with bhakti comes knowledge. And then we read Bhagavad Gita, all the pieces fit together, plus the power to fit them together, when, especially in moments when you get triggered. Someone crosses the line, and you don't get triggered. I've had devotees say, I can't, just from chanting and reading and studying Bhagavad Gita in our Bhakti Vriksha group, I don't get triggered. The things are there that were triggering me before, and I'm not triggered. I don't become angry. It's like, what happened? Wow. Now, some people continue to get angry too, but...
This lady also, she gave us like a little Buddhist help, kind of like being in the moment, breathe, some kind of respiration.
It helps.
Yeah, it's like a tactic.
Yeah, it's metabolic. The neurology of this body is helped by pranayam. Some deep breaths. But it doesn't take away the tendency. The tendency comes from the subtle body. You gotta do good bhakti. Okay.
And one last thing that we'll say about like forgiveness. Somebody was talking about forgiveness. It reminded me of Nelson Mandela when he was in jail for 27 years.
Yeah.
For apartheid. He was complaining about that, and when he left jail, he was completely peaceful. And they asked him, "Do you still feel remorse for these people who captured you?" And his answer was, "If I still feel remorse, I would still be locked up in jail. So I had to give that up for him and move on with my life." So that's how it was.
Okay. Here's the image, and it's not Kuvera, it's Varuna. And he doesn't give the name of the animal or creature or whatever it is that he's riding. It's just his opinion that this more matches what the Puranic description of Shishumar. I could read what he, you want me to read what he says? We're good, okay. I think one more and then we're going to end. One more and then we're going to end. It's already 20 after. Oh.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. 2 questions, Guru Maharaj. One was just for my information's sake, one of the slides translation. So I want to asking Dhruva to please Kuvera. He was letting Dhruva informed about the future danger or the defeat for the family, if at all he doesn't do that. So I wanted to know what kind of defeat and why it should have happened.
Why it should have happened?
If Dhruva doesn't please Kuvera, so I want to ask Dhruva to please Kuvera with kind words.
Yeah.
So if not some defeat of the family, it was mentioned like that, something if I'm not.
I'm not sure what your question is. Swayambhuva Manu said go to Kuvera and do the right thing. But he didn't even have to go to Kuvera, Kuvera came to him. That's one of your points, right?
Yes.
And so Kuvera can come to him. He just decided to do that. He was pleased. And he wanted to pacify him also. Like please him and pacify him, both. Because he was, he was angry and killing his followers. When he came, his followers were worshiping him and, so maybe he was displeasing his followers because this person he's honoring just killed a bunch of them. But they had great regard for Kuvera. I mean, I found that interesting, if not astonishing. But they're following their leader. Now, I haven't asked your question because I'm not even sure what your question is.
Yeah, Manu was more telling on the point of view of lineage, family defeat.
Family defeat?
Yeah.
Family tradition or family defeat?
Family defeat, that was in the translation clearly mentioned that if you don't do this, it may lead to family defeat.
Well, I don't know if the word defeat is the right word, but it's defamation. Maybe it leaves a blemish on our family's good name. So don't, you have to clean up that blemish.
Okay, Maharaj. Second question.
I'll go back and look because I want to check the language.
I have the slide and later.
Well, I'll take your word for it. I'll find it. Because if it's not stated correctly, I want to have it stated correctly.
That's where I stuck with the word defeat and family defeat. Like I was thinking why Kuvera would...
Well,
he can, but
that language was put in the slide not by me. I found some of the language that was put in the slide not by me I had to correct. So I'll go back. You don't have to send me this, I'll go correct, I'll look at it.
Thank you. Second thing, Maharaj, practical application. I was thinking on the topic of closing the program of friend and enemy. I don't know if I've understood properly. When I try to do that, it's personal. In general, it is wonderful, correct. That's Shastrik. When practically, when I try to do this closing the program of friend and enemy, especially in the family or devotees, always, it creates more a kind of indifference to that particular situation and person. So how should I?
Do you understand what she's asking, Madhupati? And he lives here. I don't understand what you're asking. Huh?
The concept of which we dealt.
The concept of?
Friend and enemy. Closing the program of friend and enemy.
Closing the program of friends and enemies. Okay, I thought you were talking about some program that you're doing here at the temple. I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry. So, closing the program of friends enemies And that sometimes makes more enemies, that's what you're saying?
Indifferent to that particular situation and person.
It makes your heart hard by closing the friends' enemies, so better stay in the friends' enemies program.
I need a help, like how can I?
Well, if I've understood your question correctly, and I'm not sure I have, it sounds like the question of fault finding versus discrimination, and they're not the same. So, supposing I'm Suniti, and I see what Suruchi's doing, and I'm feeling hurt. And I'm seeing what's going on with my son, and I can't take that either. I'm feeling double hurt. And I'm thinking of my good husband who doesn't care about me, and that's triple hurt. So I'm feeling all these feelings. And none of those three are good. So I'm Suniti, and my discriminating faculty is on. It's not shut it off. But I'm not seeing friend and enemy. I'm seeing, as you know, Vishwanath says, from the time of my birth across my forehead was written, this is going to come to me. And sure enough, and I accept it. Now what did she do? She gave shelter to her son, recognizing with motherly affection, this is my son's nature, this is his kind of determination. He's not going to take don't go for an answer, or give it up. He did. Don't get, the instruction was give up wishing ill against others, but don't, she didn't say, give up this idea of this big kingdom. I know of the nature of my son. Let me give the resource to help my son achieve what he wants to achieve. Even it may mean I won't have his association, this little boy's association. She's really ready to forego that one too. So, to close the friend-enemy program doesn't mean you stop discriminating and then stop making decisions wisely based upon what's out there. Because what's in here, if what's in here is clear, Krishna will give intelligence how to deal with what's in here as well as what's out there. The internal and the external features of your devotional service. You don't become impersonal, you don't become numb. She was feeling the feelings, she wasn't numb. It doesn't work to make yourself numb. It makes it worse. There's a nice TED talk on this topic that I showed at somebody's home with the youth group here. She saw. It's TED Talk vulnerability, and you'll catch it. And she says, one of the slides, she just has the word numb. It doesn't work. Or suppress the emotion. You don't live in it and stir it around a whole bunch and say, oh, but you don't numb it either. It's just detached from it. And it's just part of what's out there, part of what's in here. Now, how am I going to respond to it? Then you get in the response position instead of the react position. And then, because friend, enemy, that's react. And response is, I'm discriminating. Krishna's helping me see what's what. And now I'm going to make some Krishna-directed choices as to what's pleasing to him. And making some boundaries. I'm just going to keep some boundaries. I may keep a little distance from something or someone. But not in a react mode or a protectionist mode or friend-enemy mode, just in a, prudent. I know my limits. I'm not Suniti. But look what came to Suniti because of her Suniti quality. But I'm not Suniti. So this is this acceptance, and then you decide what's appropriate and sustainable. Part of what's appropriate is a step that's sustainable for me. It matches where I am in my spiritual trajectory at this phase of my life, and I'm accepting that, and I'm making a step that's a doable, sustainable step for me. And I don't have to, I can close the friend-enemy program. Now, some other people want to say something, but I want to close because of time. It's 12:30. I want to say just some appreciation for this audience. I mean, particularly the elder devotees that are here. You got busy lives like I do, and you've been here like through the whole thing, and it's been meaningful to me just that, not just like you're physically here, but you've been actively listening and participating. I'm expressing my appreciation to you who have been here through it. And for me, the opportunity for being with an audience, it's one thing to sit in a room or somewhere and study deeply, and it's a whole other thing to share that, because I love the Bhagavatam. It's what sustains me in Krishna consciousness, honestly. And so I love the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I love sharing the Srimad Bhagavatam, exactly what Maitreya says to Vidura, discussing in the association of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Your presence in the interactive has helped to go more deeply in the topic. So it's like, thank you. I already have an idea for next year. I've already started working on it. I'm not like Peter Burwash, where every day I spend 10, 20 minutes on the topic, but I do in chunks of time, and it's already happening. It may, I have an idea, and it may modify just by time and super soul and things, but I'm sure it's going to be, I'm going to be vibrating up here, and you'll see what happens for all of you. So, gratitude to all of you to help me in going more deeply in the Bhagavatam's message. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi.
In person from Maharaja ki Jai.